So to make our sauce, we're going to start by adding about 1 liter of water to a pot and bringing it to a boil. And now that we're boiling, I'm going to throw in a diced up onion. Using a small onion here. If you have a much larger onion, then go ahead and use half of it. You don't need that much onion for this amount of water. And I'm also going to throw in 2 sliced habanero chilies. You could also use Scotch bonnets. I left the stems on, which you can do if you really like spice. If not, you can chop those off. You can use 1 Scotch bonnet. Just take this to whatever level you want. I like to take it to 11 and then regret it immediately afterwards. So this is called sumbala, or iru, or dawa dawa, depending on what of the many languages of West Africa you speak. And it is fermented locust beans. The smell is kind of earthy and chocolatey with a sharp funkiness that comes from the fermentation. Now this is totally dried, so what we're gonna do is go ahead and rehydrate with a little bit of water. That way it blends better with our sauce. We'll give it a little bit of a stir with a spoon just to get it going. And I'm gonna add in my sumbala at this point, so it has a good chance to break down a little bit. So I'm gonna stir those guys in and let them go for about 10 minutes or so until the onions start to wilt and the beans start to soften up a little bit. So this is looking good. So we can go ahead and season it with a little bit of salt. A few pinches, couple teaspoons. Some freshly ground black pepper. We got some dried onion flakes as well. Next up, I've got some star anise that I'm going to just grind into a powder using my coffee grinder. Hopefully it's up for the task. And you could always just buy the powdered variety instead of doing this. I'll throw in about a teaspoon of that. Stuff can be kind of overpowering, so I don't want to use too much of it. Next, I've got some dried baobab leaves, aka kuka, which is where the name of the dish comes from. I'm not sure exactly what a baobab tree looks like or is, but apparently this is one of those superfoods because every time I look it up, all the results I get are health benefits of baobab. This doesn't go in on its own, it needs to be mixed with some sort of fat. Traditionally you would use shea butter, but I couldn't find any shea butter that wasn't meant to be used as a lotion and didn't say for external use only. So I'm going to take the safer choice and use something similar texture, coconut oil. I've got a few tablespoons of the leaves, and I'm going to start with a couple tablespoons of the oil. And you're trying to make a paste here. And I'm going to throw in all of that baobab leaf kuka. This should act as a thickener, but it also kind of smells like tea, so I'm guessing it'll add a bit of flavor. So I want this to be a nice thick sauce, so I'm gonna let that reduce for anywhere from 10 minutes to 45 minutes. I'm just gonna play it by ear, see how it goes, and we'll see when it's done. So here I've got about a serving of rice that I've rinsed, and I'm gonna add enough water to cover it. That ends up being 250 milliliters of water to 200 milliliters of rice, let's say. And I'm gonna let that soak for about 10 minutes. After 10 minutes, I'm gonna go ahead and bring the rice to a boil. So the rice is boiling, and I realize now that I need a little bit more water. So I'm gonna go ahead and do that. Just another 250 milliliters, because I realize now that the rice is gonna fluff up, and we're not gonna have enough water for the next step. So once again, bring that to a boil. We're gonna cover it up, and we're gonna let it go for about 10 minutes until the rice starts to cook. All right, so it's been 10 minutes and our rice is looking nice and fluffy and it is cooked, but there's still plenty of water left so that we can now form our rice ball, which is what we're doing. So here I've got some cornmeal. It's very finely ground and it's used all over Africa as a staple starch. It can be called pap, nsima, ugali. I've done a number of videos with this stuff before. And in this case, what we're gonna do is mix it with the rice. Instead of creating a polenta, basically, we are using this as a binder to create a nice rice ball. Now, what you want to do is add a little bit at a time. If you add any more than just a sprinkle, you're going to start forming some lumps. And if you see any lumps on the surface, just be sure to break them with your fork. I'm using a fork and not a whisk or a spoon because with a whisk, all of the rice and the cornmeal would get stuck in between the spokes, whatever you want to call them. Whereas in this case, my fork remains relatively clean. And if I ever need to wipe it down, I can always use just the side of the pot. I don't have an exact metric for this, and the same goes for if I were making polenta or pop. I just want to go until I get the texture and consistency that I want. And we're almost there. It's thick enough that my pot is rotating on its own. Okay. Yeah, it's strong enough to hold up my fork. So I think that we are at the phase that we want to be at. I'm going to turn off the heat. And now I'm going to attempt to form this into a ball. What we're supposed to do is form a ball in a bowl by kind of tossing it. I'm going to take a little bit of oil just so it doesn't stick. Don't want too much, just a little bit. Spread it all over. I'm going to take a lump of this. And then just by tossing it back and forth, I'm not getting enough force for it to happen. So that's where I call it. And take my spoon, give it a little bit of oil so that the rice doesn't stick to it. And then kind of do my best to form this into an appetizing looking ball. So I've been called out before for not using my hands and for using silverware with food that's meant to be eaten with your hands. So here we go. This has got some chili peppers in it, so I'm gonna wash my hands thoroughly after this, but this is for you, audience. That is extremely flavorful. The funkiness of the Sumbala beans has definitely reduced quite a bit and like dispersed, as has the anise. It's not as overpowering as it could have been. All in all, it's very rich, it's very hearty, it's very spicy, and if green were a flavor, that's what this would be. Those baobab leaves definitely are the key ingredient here, thus the name. Now I know that a lot of the ingredients are hard to come by, but if you look around, they may not be as exotic as you think. There are a lot of West African communities all over the United States, all over the world, and they probably have a shop that supplies them with the foods that they like to eat. So go explore, go talk to people, go make some new friends. You may find a new favorite food, a new favorite cuisine, a new favorite ingredient, but I'll leave that up to you. So as always, I've got a link to the full recipe in the description below. And if you like West African food, then check out this video where I show you how to make stewed okra from Guinea. See you next time. Cheers.